What's up, late starters? Welcome to episode 1 of the Late Starters Club podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Vall. In today's episode, we're going to be talking to Michael Stelzner, my friend and mentor, and founder of the multi-million-dollar company Social Media Examiner. We're going to be talking to him about his newest project, the Crypto Business podcast and conference. We're going to be diving into his formula for starting a new business, what he looks for, and how he weathers unexpected change. Listen in. Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Late Starters Club, giving you the inspiration, mindset, and tools you need to start something midlife and beyond. Remember, it's never too late to follow your dreams. Hey, dreamers, it's Andrea Vall here, and I am so excited to be joined by one of my personal mentors, probably the person who's had some of the biggest impacts on my business and on my career. And he didn't even realize I was going to say that, but Michael Stelzner. And I am so excited to have you on the podcast. For those of you who don't know, who you really should know, but if those of you who don't know Michael Stelzner, he is the founder of Social Media Examiner, the world's largest social media marketing resource. He's started Social Media Examiner in 2009. He started his podcast in 2012 with 33 million downloads. And he's coming up to the 10th year of Social Media Marketing World, one of the world's largest social media conferences. So welcome, Michael.
Andrea, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I am so excited. And we are going to talk today about kind of some of the new things you're launching, which I'm excited about. I'm excited to talk to you about because I think, you've had so much success, and I want to dive into some of these new things and why you're starting new things and how they're going and all of that. But before we get started, I wanted to just kind of have you answer in one sentence what has been kind of your life summed up into one sentence.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that I have a background as a copywriter, but this is not going to be an easy task for a lot of people. Given this audience and everything, I'm going to say this. I am an entrepreneur and a content creator that runs a media company that helps marketers embrace social media and Web3. And I know that's a lot. If I had to summarize it even more, I'd say I run a media company that helps the world understand social media marketing and Web3.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. I love it. I think that's a great summary. And it is hard to summarize, especially when you've had so many different things in your life. You also, of course, have so many things going on with family life and all that stuff. But this is a great summary of what you've achieved so far. And I love that it also evolves, right? Because we're always evolving beings. So tell me a little bit more about your crypto business podcast. And I want to hear kind of, you've done so many great things. You started way back with the white paper. Is it white paper resource or white paper?
White paper source. Yeah.
White paper source.
Yeah. I was writing white papers for other businesses, and it was called Stelzner Consulting in the beginning, believe it or not. Nothing creative at all.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. So you started with that, then you launched Social Media Examiner, and that has had amazing success. How many people come to the website like each month or daily or whatever?
I think there's about 1.2 million people a month that read the website, which is kind of crazy.
Gosh, that is amazing. I love that. So now you're starting the Crypto Business Podcast, and tell me a little bit about that. How did that come about? What was your kind of goal with that? And, where were you? What sparked that?
So the date was sometime in November of 2021. We were preparing for Social Media Marketing World, this conference you were talking about earlier. And then all over the news was this word, Omicron. And I went, oh no, you've got to be kidding me. I just had months earlier canceled Social Media Marketing World because of COVID. And Omicron was the thing that lit the fire under my backside to do this thing that I'd been thinking about doing for a few months, which was to begin a new show, a new podcast on this crazy frontier that we call Web3. And I really wanted to explore concepts that are NFTs and DAOs and social tokens, things that might sound want to a lot of people. But I wanted to explore how the business world would be impacted by crypto and crypto related technologies. And my objective really was to interview people that were way smarter than myself and hopefully bring great content to the listeners of my audience that were attracted to this concept. And the hope was that if I could draw a big enough audience, I would potentially be able to do more with this. Andrea, you might remember I launched the Social Media Marketing Podcast about 9 months before I launched Social Media Marketing World. So there was
That's
a
right.
conference in the back of my head. And the goal was to build an audience and hopefully prove out my thesis that the world would be interested in this. I launched it in January of 2022. And we're just a few weeks away from my crypto business conference happening in San Diego.
So you're essentially kind of taking the formula that you had for Social Media Marketing World, kind of applying it to just a brand new and very new, field. And do you think that when you started Social Media Marketing World, there was a lot of people kind of talking about social media? It was pretty popular. Where do you think do you think you're starting this crypto business conference and everything like that even earlier on the cusp of this trend? Is that
for sure? And one could
okay.
almost argue too early.
Interesting.
Started Social Media Examiner in 2009. The conference was in 2013, right? So that gave me plenty of time to create content, to draw an audience, to establish a reputation in the industry. We were doing online events, which I think you were part of, some of our online summits before we did the physical conference. And for folks that don't know, Andrea was a contractor for Social Media Examiner in the early years as well, helping us with our community management stuff, which was amazing. So yeah, it's my model is kind of a simple model, which is create great content and draw an audience to you that is interested in that content. And the hope is a tiny little fragment of that audience will want to buy whatever it is you have to sell, and it will justify the creation of the content in the first place, right? So content is like the great magnet that draws an audience to you. And what I started out as a writer, I eventually embraced my voice, and I realized that I actually enjoy using my voice more than I even enjoy writing. So podcasting has been like a really great launch pad for me and for my company, Social Media Examiner, to try all sorts of fascinating new initiatives, So the hope was that the crypto business podcast would blow up, and there would be just tons of people that would want to listen to it. And then I would have this killer conference because, we know how to put on conferences, and in the crypto world, they don't really understand how to put on conferences.
Your conferences are amazing. It is like a cannot be missed kind of activity. Schedule, plan around it. Do not block it off, from everything. So your conferences are awesome. And it's interesting that you say you've evolved from the written word to your voice. I heard that you had wanted to be a DJ at one time. Is that true?
When I was a little kid, back when cassette players were like the thing, me and my brother would go in the basement, and we would make fake radio commercials, and I would impersonate Wolfman Jack, who some of you are going to know who that guy is, And so I thought that was the cool thing. You want to be in radio, right? And I never ended up doing that, but I did get 2 degrees in speech communication, undergrad and master's, and turned out this little thing was the thing. I thought I was a writer, and it turns out I'm not just a writer. I'm also someone who uses my voice, and it's been powerful. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I love that too, because, I think some of these childhood dreams we've had in the past can manifest in a whole different way and become something where we create the world where it's going to show up. Maybe you're not going to be a DJ on a radio station, but you've got a radio station with millions of downloads yourself, and you own the publishing kind of outlet for that, and you own that audience in a whole different way.
100%. I agree.
I love that. Now, tell me a little bit about, like, you had talked and actually, I asked you in our kind of pre-interview questions about your biggest takeaway, and you kind of revealed it here, is that content is the key to your success.
I think content can be the key to anyone's success. For those that don't know, Social Media Examiner helps people with YouTube. We used to help people with blogging and podcasting, but we mostly focus on video, live audio, social updates across the social platforms. And the truth is that anyone who desires to be influential or a thought leader almost always is doing it on the back of content, right? So maybe you start as a blog and then you publish a book, or maybe you start as a podcaster and then before you know it, you've got a audio book or a course that you're teaching, right? These are all things that you can do with content. What's great about content is it's highly scalable. You can have an unlimited amount of listeners or viewers or readers. And it's been the key to my success. And I kind of feel like it's maybe even been the key to your success a little bit, Andrea. Back when you were Grandma Mary, you were creating seriously funny video content, right?
Yeah, that's true. And that was my little childhood dream of wanting to be Carol Burnett. So so I was able to do that. We all have things that can manifest, and we can own that vision and put that out there no matter what we're doing, right? Yeah, but I definitely think that content is huge and so underrated. People, aren't thinking about blogging, or they're maybe feeling like it's too hard. And what I love about what you've done is you've leveraged content of other people, and you continue to do that with interviews and things like that.
Yeah, that's worth talking about. You don't have to be the expert. I am not the expert. People think I'm an expert. They impute the wisdom of other people to me, even though I'm only interviewing them, right? So the Social Media Marketing Podcast, which is my really big show, I've only done a handful of solo episodes. Nearly every one of them has been interviewing people like Andrea, who's a Facebook ads expert, and other people who are TikTok experts and YouTube experts, and essentially asking the right questions so that there's a learning moment for whoever's listening or watching it. And that's the great thing, is you don't have to be an expert. If you can curate experts, which is what you could argue I do really well, all of a sudden you can draw an audience to you who's interested in that topic, and you can build a successful business at any age.
Yeah, that's great. That is great, because I think it is scary, and I think it's easier when you're doing interviews, you're connecting with someone. It's not all you. You don't have to come up with everything to say. You can just ask the great questions and let the expert, provide all the answers. So that's awesome. So tell me a little bit about some of the unexpected obstacles that have come up with starting this crypto business podcast, and also the event, because you've done so much. You would think, oh, Mike's got it all together. He's, but you still come up against obstacles just like anyone else.
First of all, it's really important. The concept, nothing ventured, nothing gained, is such an important concept, right? So like, Andrew, you've been working with me long enough to remember all the crazy things that I don't do anymore that we did. Like we just had all sorts of different things we tried and we stopped, right? But along the way we learned, and then allows us to do other things. So if I didn't do my online events, I could have never done physical events, right? Because I learned how to develop relationships with the right people who would agree to come speak at the physical event, ... So the challenge with starting anything new is the question of, it might not work. It's more of a statement than a question. It might not work. And you need to be okay with the fact that it might not work. but you have to make a calculated risk. What I did was I looked at the patterns that have happened before, having been in multiple different industries, and I looked at how much media crypto, NFTs, and Web3 were getting in late 2021 and early 2022. It was ridiculous. You could not read about it, right? It was everywhere. And I remembered what it was like when social media was starting to kind of pop off. And I thought to myself, this is a very similar pattern. And I also noticed there were very few people teaching, which is what it was like in the early days of social. There were a lot of people who claimed they had secret knowledge and they were holding it tight and they were selling it for a lot of money. But there were very few people who were going out there actually sharing their wisdom. So I said to myself, wonder if this is a repeatable model, because I've been successfully able to use this model over and over again. So I went for it, and I invested enormous amounts of time and money and resources to develop the show and recruit the guests. And I ran into a bunch of obstacles along the way. The first obstacle was I'm going to these events and they're all, who are you, old man? Like they don't know who this gray-haired guy is. Occasionally one person would run up to me, oh my gosh, you're Michael Stelzner from Social Media Examiner. Can I take a selfie? But it was very rare. And most of these people had no clue who I was. So there was like the starting from scratch thing in a new industry and not having the reputation and the credibility. So that was a struggle. So I just had to be patient and say, all right, they don't know who I am, but they will eventually. That was a major struggle. The other side of it is sometimes there's things that are completely beyond your control that you just simply cannot account for. One of them is the market crash and the recession that we're in right now, right? So crypto has gone through a crazy high and it's in a crypto winter right now. So a lot of things have changed, right? And Gartner talks about this hype chart, and they talk about how at the beginning things hyped, and then they go through the trough of disillusionment before they ultimately reach the peak of something or another. And I can't remember what all they are, but all innovation goes through a hype cycle, right? And we're on the downward trend of the initial hype cycle with a lot of this stuff because it just got so much hype. And I was there right as that hype was coming about. And I rode that wave, but then all of a sudden it just kind of like fizzled. And I'm still in it, but when something fizzles and it loses kind of media attention or it gets negative media attention, then you have a lot of people saying, oh, I don't want to touch that. I want to stay away from that, right? So one could argue I was right on schedule when I launched this whole thing, but I could never have anticipated that the whole thing was going to turn into this crypto winter. Right. And when you have a dark period like this, and we've experienced a little bit of this, Andrea, like Facebook went through a dark period where a lot of people didn't want to be around it and they've abandoned the platform. But in this particular case, this is so new, the world of crypto, that you have a lot of people that lost a lot of money and are scared to get into it. So as a result, I'm banking on businesses wanting to see how this could alter the future of how we think about business, and entirely new business models, right, that have never existed before, that are built on the back of automation and the blockchain. And all of a sudden this thing crashes, right? So all of a sudden my new audience flatlines. I take surveys. My audience isn't interested in it. My existing audience isn't interested in it. We planned for this big event. Now it's going to be a small event, and we're talking a couple hundred people, and we're actually going to lose money on it, right? So these are all the challenges that you face when you're starting something new. And I try to have a growth mindset, Andrea. I try to say to myself, okay, the limiting belief mindset, and there's a name for it, but when you get banged up and you reach roadblocks, it's like, see, I told you that was going to happen. You should have never done it in the first place, right? But the growth mindset, like, nope, this is just a little speed bump on the way. I'm just going to pick myself up, dust off all the dirt that's on me, and keep on rolling, because this is just going to be a learning experience for me. I'm trying very hard to have a growth mindset, because nothing ever is flawless. We all have dreams, right, Andrea? And they're never easy as we think to achieve them. Don't you agree?
For sure. And I think that I love that growth mindset concept as well. And I think you are always kind of pouring into making sure that you're brain and mindset is in the right place, because I think that's what it takes here. And I think it is hard to anticipate things, and I think it's a little bit about dealing with disappointment when you have an idea of how things are going to go and the outcome is a little bit different. Is there anything you do to kind of work through that disappointment of things not going exactly as planned?
Well, the first thing that I do is I pay attention to where the world is changing and going. And the moment I begin to see that maybe things might not be as good as I think they're going to be, as I assess the situation, right? Like originally I envisioned thousands of people and I had literally half the San Diego Convention Center committed. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, we're not going to do this downstairs and upstairs. We're just going to do it upstairs, right? And then I'm like, all right, I'm going to slow boat the recruitment of speakers because that costs a lot of money, right? Every speaker I have, if I have too many, I need multiple stages, right? And all of a sudden production costs go up. So what I had to do is I had to like had to be like Braveheart. Hold. The problem was our plans had to get thrown out and reassessed and thrown out and reassessed. And, you know, I've got a decent amount of employees that work for me, you know, more than a couple dozen. And, you know, it's unnerving for them because, you know, they keep hearing changes happening and they don't understand why. So I have to like keep them motivated. I have to explain to them, look, you know, we couldn't have anticipated this, right? The demand isn't there. And when the demand's not there, it doesn't matter what you do, you know, if you're not going to be able to be as successful as you want. And then I eventually had to internally say, I guess I need to be okay losing hundreds of thousands of dollars on this event. And that's a hard pill to swallow. And eventually I became okay with it because, you know, I am a person of faith. I felt like I was led to do this. And I said to myself, all right, God, what do you want to teach me through this whole process? Because that's how I have a growth mindset. I know that even if I don't do another crypto conference, I'm going to continue to do my podcast and I'm going to continue to believe in this future. And I'm going to hopefully continue to teach my larger audience the opportunities that are here. And hopefully as things start turning around, more and more people will come back and be interested and I'll be in a really good spot. You know that drawing, you probably have seen it. It's a little cartoon where they show two people in a cave digging for gold and one person quits. And it shows that the gold is literally just a couple knocks away, right? And the other person doesn't quit and they keep going and they get the gold, right? So it's kind of like, when do you give up? When do you give up? No, I'm not going to give up. I still believe in this thing. I still believe it's the future. It's not easy to do, especially when you have another business that you're running and all these other initiatives that are going on. But yeah, I'm not going to lie. It's never fun to lose money. It's never fun to like feel like a failure. And I keep reminding myself, no, I'm not a failure. I just haven't achieved the vision yet that I've set out for myself.
I love that. I think that is so perfect. I haven't achieved yet the vision you set out for yourself. I love that. We're gonna tweet that out because I think for sure I hear you saying some of the things you've done have been to pivot and allow yourself to not get locked into a plan. It sounded like you had reserved the half the convention center and you weren't locked into that and you could pivot and change. And that's what I think is important, to kind of hedge your bets a little, plan for success, but also allow that pivoting. And then the other thing I think it sounded like you really did was just not, you're not overextending yourself. Even though you lost money, you've got the successful business that is running and everything is still going to be okay. You're still able to keep your employees. You're not extending yourself beyond where you need to be.
Yeah. And, I've learned so much from this entire experience that's going to impact the main business, right? So we've learned how to do things more economically. We've learned that we don't need to have fancy LED walls behind us like we had at Social Media Marketing World. We learned that we can do a single track event. I mean, like, hello, why didn't I think of that from the beginning? I could have saved so much money, right? Like everybody's on the keynote stage because there's only one stage, right? We've learned all sorts of things that we have never done before, right? Because the moment you are pressured or forced to do more with less is the moment you learn to rethink how things can be done. And now a lot of these innovations that have happened as a result of us, quote unquote, losing money on this smaller conference are going to actually result in us saving money on the bigger conference.
Awesome. I love that. And one of the things you had said when from one of my questions that I asked you in our little pre-interview thing was if you could go back in time and tell yourself something, your younger self something, what would it be? And you said take more risks. Is that still true given kind of the risks you have been taking?
100%. I mean, if I really thought about that question, I would say buy Bitcoin at $5. Okay. It's at
Nice.
20,000 today, right? Like that probably would have been the best piece of advice. Buy Apple at $4, right? So, but yeah, take more risks, because once you have gone over the scary cliff and rappelled down into the canyon of risk, you realize it's not as scary, and you do it better and better each time, right? And things that have held me back, like I probably would have done a lot more video stuff a lot earlier. I might have started a podcast earlier. You know, I probably would make maybe different kinds of investments. Maybe I would have kept my second home, you know, instead of selling it to buy my third home, you know, and I would have had another investment property. I just seemed too risky at the time, right? So, you know, in hindsight, as you age and get more mature and you're in your 50s like I am, you just begin to realize a lot of things that you've been holding back on, there's really no reason. Like, you know how to do this stuff. You just need to trust yourself to be able to go for it, right? I would for sure, this gray-haired guy would tell this black-haired younger version of me, go for it. Go for it, kid. You got it. I know you can do that.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I did watch some of your older interviews. It was fun to see, you know, just so fun as you were starting some of those other businesses. It was so great to kind of see as, you know, you've done so many amazing things. And I think it's exciting to see the way you think. I know that you are such a huge statistics and analyzing type of person, and that's, I think, also a key to your success, is you're really watching the numbers, watching the trends, really have a deep analysis before you're doing things. I think that's been a great thing.
Thank you.
So one other question that I ask everyone is, what is something that what is an assumption that people have about you that's wrong?
I think people think I have it all together, and that's not true. I think people are like, don't worry, Mike's got it all figured out. No, it's not true at all. I'm a very much, I'm a deep thinker, but I don't have it all figured out. You know, I just try a lot of things, and some work and some don't. And the ones that work, I just keep, you know, sharpening that axe, if you will, until I get really good at just that thing, that axe. Right. But I do not have it all figured out. There's so many things that I know nothing about that I have to defer to a lot of other people for, you know, like a lot of people just assume I know social media marketing like the back of my hand, and I don't. I know enough to be dangerous because I've interviewed amazing people like you, Andrea, but I do not know that. And I don't have it all figured out. And the good news is, I think to everyone who's listening, is you do not have to have it all figured out. You just need to know what the next step is that you need to take to where you want to go. And if you don't know what the next step is, you need to know who can tell you what the next step is to get where you want to go. And if, as long as you have someone guiding you, or as long as you just worry about the next step, then, you know, things can all come together.
That is awesome. That is often awesome. And that is a perfect segue into your favorite quote, one of your favorite quotes. Why don't you share that with us?
Yeah. So, you know, when you asked me about this, I have a couple of them in a little sticky note on my Mac. And this one is, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Albert Einstein. I love this quote because I think it's a lot of work to try to convey things in a clear and concise fashion. And I think too many people aren't willing to do the work. If you can do the work and process and think about how others are going to receive your message and whether it actually makes sense, right? Whether it's coherent, whether it's focused, whether it's interesting to your target audience. These are really important things that are the key to marketing and also the key to content and really the key to success and to life. So work on it, practice it, because if you cannot communicate it clearly, you got a lot of work to do.
That's awesome. And that is one of your gifts for sure, Mike. You definitely dive into some of those complex problems and make them a lot simpler. It's been a mission, I think, throughout your career, definitely tying that all together. And I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show. You are just such an inspiration to me. I just feel super blessed to call you a friend, a mentor, and someone I've known for a long time and have been able to work with for a long time. So thank you so much, Mike.
Thank you, Andrea, for doing this show.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear what people think. If people want to reach out on Twitter, I'm at Mike_Stelzner, if that's your platform of choice. I'm also at Stelzner on Instagram. I would love to hear from you.
Yeah. And tell us where people can find out more about your crypto business podcast.
If you go to Social Media Examiner, all of our podcasts are there. But if you really want to listen to the crypto business one, you can just search for crypto business on any platform, Spotify, YouTube, you name it. And there's plenty of great content there for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Hope that was helpful, and make sure you grab the free guide, Top Tools for Late Starters, on the website at latestartersclub.com. And let's turn dreaming into doing.